fixing the All-Star Game, finding a way to revive the Midsummer Classic, January 15, 2025. The sights and sounds of baseball on a summer's night is universal for most people. Whether young or old, urban or rural, we've all grabbed a hot dog and a beer to watch some of the best take the field. This is no more true than one night in the heart of the summer. It marks the unofficial midway mark to the season. The All-Star Game brings together all corners of its respective league for a special night showcasing the best talent they have to offer. It's truly an event that should be second only to a league's championship series. This is as true for the major leagues as it is for the independent leagues. Alas, this is no longer the case. The game has become, for most leagues, a midweek drag that struggles to draw more than 1,000 fans. For some leagues, they simply eliminated the game as a whole and opted to just continue the season as though nothing notable occurred. I think that's a shame. Even more than that, I believe it is one of the biggest missed opportunities in Indy Ball today. That's why today I'm going to lay out the plan for restoring the mid-season classic to its former glory and make it the marquee event that Indy Ball deserves. Before I get into the thick of the restoration plan, there's a little bit of background information to cover. Currently, only 2 of the 4 official partner leagues holds an All-Star game during the season. The American Association holds an All-Star weekend every July in one of the team's ballparks. The game and either a home run derby or skills competition have become mainstays for the association, but in recent years they've added a league-wide luncheon where they induct their Hall of Fame class for that year. Personally, I don't mind this format. It's fairly traditional, but it does provide an opportunity for players that opt to attend. The Hall of Fame luncheon is also a nice touch and hits in the spirit of league-wide celebration that we're after. That being said, the game suffers from the league's large geography as players oftentimes opt out of the game due to travel difficulties and expenses. Not to mention the last-minute voting system they use doesn't exactly help the cause now either. The Frontier League, the only other league that hosts an All-Star festivity, has a similar issue with opt-outs. Their structure is a bit more fluid, as the host often has more discretion as to how the event is operated. Usually that means something similar to what the American Association does, so I'll refer back to my previous comments for thoughts on that format. The biggest difference is in how the roster is constructed, where the Frontier League allows for only a curated few to select the roster. For all intents and purposes, the only 2 All-Star games in independent baseball are the same. Quickly covering the Pioneer and Atlantic Leagues, who opt to release a mid-season roster of All-Stars instead of hosting a game. The Pioneer League hasn't hosted an All-Star game since going independent in 2021. I'd imagine due to the high travel costs and other business expenses that have recently gone up in price according to some league personnel. The Atlantic League held an All-Star game every year prior to the pandemic. The same division versus division format in every season except the inaugural 1998 and the 2014 season, where the host team played the ALPB All-Stars. This was the result of first-year hiccups and the difficulty of getting over 40 ball players to Sugar Land, Texas. Also worth noting, the home team versus All-Star format was going to be revived in 2020 when Southern Maryland was set to host the game prior to the season's cancellation due to the pandemic. There were other formats that past leagues had used as well, such as the Can-Am League versus American Association format. But by and large, that just about covers all the major formats. That background information settled, we can proceed to saving the Midsummer Classic. There are 3 major format changes that I've schemed up that could near universally work across all 4 leagues. Each has their own mix of national, local, and league-wide appeal that make them perfect for reviving the special aura that used to come with the game. The first idea is admittedly one that longtime followers of mine will immediately know without needing to be told. Of course, this could only mean playing a one-night-only game against the Savannah Bananas and friends. Now, I know how that sounds on the surface, and it comes across this idea that a keyboard rando would horrifically out-of-touch senses would come up with. Hear me out, though. The Bananas are the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball, in that they do all the wacky, crazy stunts you would never see at a regular season game. Their media reach is second to none in the sport, and they print money, selling out MLB stadiums in a matter of minutes. This is the kind of event that will get headlines, that will turn major profits for the stadium and the team. Added points for feasibility when you take into consideration that the Bananas have played several independent stadiums in the past, which indicates there's an existing relationship there. There are drawbacks, of course. For starters, it's going to be expensive to get them there. The Bananas have a lot of demand, hence why they've added several teams in the past couple of years. The leverage in the contract is entirely in their side, too. Terms will not be acceptable for the team or the league. Also working against things is how stacked the schedule is for Bananas and Friends. Their card is filled with 20,000-seat stadiums, and I can't imagine them wanting to sacrifice the revenue to make this plan a reality. While this is definitely the most difficult of the three plans to achieve, it's also the most fun, and the one that would best meet our requirements of being fun and filling the stands. If we're keeping with the spirit of independent baseball, then this next one will certainly keep the local people in mind. It's admittedly stolen from the Washington Wild Things, as they host this game annually as a community fundraiser to great success. This event, turned All-Star Game format, is the Celebrity Game. The hosting team would assemble a team of local celebrities and athletes to form one team while the All-Stars play against them. Immediate positives would be going with this idea puts an extreme emphasis on the local market. In theory, this would drive more people to the ballpark to meet and greet certain celebs and take what would have been a midweek struggle to sell 2,000 seats and turn it into a must-see event. It will also be the most engaging of all the events, as the game goes from a true best-on-best to pure exhibition, which isn't the worst thing in the world to have over a 4-month-long season. The average fan can see the home team play at any point in the season, but getting a chance to see the best in the league and the best of what the league has to offer, plus local celebrities and local athletes in a candid setting, is something that is a draw. Not to mention the various tiered packages that could be offered to enhance the experience. That said, there will likely be some appearance fees for some of the celebrities, and they'll need to book everyone nearly a year out. This opens the door to a series of difficulties leading up to the event. Cancellations, last-minute replacements, possible controversies, etc. that could derail things. Moreover, our main mission failed with this one. The game being the highlight and true best-on-best competition that showcased the league's talent is obviously not happening here. That's not inherently a deal-breaker. Getting people in seats is far more important, even if I prefer to focus on baseball. In total fairness, this would be a problem with the Bananas idea as well, so that's something to consider. In short, this idea is more feasible than the Bananas idea, and it focuses on the community that it's being held in, while bringing in people to the stands in a lighthearted manner. There's one idea that I have left, and I'll openly admit that this is far from an original idea. It was a very popular format in the big three North American sports leagues during the late 2000s, early 2010s. I'm talking about the fantasy draft format. This would free up any league to pick the best or at least most willing players to attend the game, and let one of the players from each of the host teams be a captain, and perhaps a respected league veteran be the other. And another idea could be letting local socialites be honorary captains to get extra community flair. Regardless, this adds a different element to the classic game and lets guys from across the league play with their friends or old teammates. It maintains the integrity of an actual baseball game and lets guys get an extra game in front of scouts in a setting that might be more attractive to scouts. The drawbacks here aren't really that bad either. Sure, this idea is a bit tired and feels like a bit of a retread from larger leagues, but that doesn't diminish the potential upside. And if we're being honest here, nobody cares about retreads if they work. Likewise, it's a bit more complex than the others, as you will need to get everything organized in advance, and a large part of the appeal, picking teams and the like, would happen prior to the game when there's less attention on what's happening at the field. That certainly puts a damper on things and could be confusing for people arriving late, or that get to their seat mid-inning. This is still an idea that's worth exploring for a lot of leagues. It's difficult enough to give your creative team some real possibilities to create different and memorable experiences while retaining that familiar sense that everyone loves. This idea gives them that opportunity. I structured this piece and the ideas in it from the best to worst ideas. Now that is strictly based on which ideas I'd like to see the most and which ideas I believe would be the largest success. None of which has a thing to do with the actual feasibility. In fact, I go as far to say as they're unintentionally ranked least feasible to most, which is why I tell any league executive that might stumble across this piece now or in the future to simply try new things. I understand that there are very real interleague politics that exist across baseball, where every owner has their own set of priorities and that they exist on a plane of comfortability. However, the All-Star Game should be a tent where your coalition meets to plan for the rest of the year and discuss what hasn't worked thus far. It should be what draws out the prospective sponsors and employees that can level up your brand and the brands that make up the league. Most of all, it should be the one event fans from across the league travel to annually, like a pilgrimage to Mecca. It is far from that now. It lay in ruins, and business and sporting potential leak into the gutter. Change is good. Change can save it. Any idea that is new is worth discussing. And an idea that sticks around through the discussion is worth materializing in some manner. It can be something conservative like a fantasy draft or something more bold like banana ball. But it has to be something worth seeing. Otherwise, it's just a glorified fruitcake to get passed around each Christmas. The full article in its written form is available on indyballreport.com and linked in the description of this video. Thank you for listening.